This is Studio 809.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone, and you can find me on my website at hikingbob.com, which has links to my social media, my other podcast, my photography website. Also, you can look at the link there for signing up for my newsletter, and also you can send me an email if you have any questions or comments or a topic or a guest you'd like to see us have on the podcast. You can do that there at hikingbob.com. And don't forget, too, we'd appreciate your support. Help keep this podcast running. You can do that at Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob. Today, joining me is my co-host, Wild Westendorf. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, everyone. Wild Westendorf here. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Wild Westendorf, and my website, which is wildwestendorf.wordpress.com.
Well, Kevin, thanks for being on the podcast. I want to touch on one thing real quick, the ongoing saga of what's going on with the CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission. When we left it last week, we had recorded it before the candidates that were nominated by the governor were being brought up to be confirmed by the Senate. And where we left it last week, now things changed between the time we recorded the podcast and the time the podcast aired. The day in between was when this full Senate voted on these nominees. So they started out with 3 nominees that were nominated by the governor last summer. Senate was not in session, so they had to wait till they came back into session, which they just recently did, and then they have to be approved by the Senate. In the meantime, they were operating on the commission. The commission is what sets policy, makes rules, all that kind of stuff for Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So what happened was, in the Senate, in the Senate's Agricultural Recreation Committee, 2 of the 3 candidates were not recommended to be confirmed by the Senate, which made a lot of news. It doesn't happen very often. And typically, even nominees for this don't even make the news. Nobody even knows they come and go unless you're paying attention to that kind of stuff. In any case, that happened the week before we recorded last week's podcast. Over the weekend, or leading up to that, one of the nominees who was not recommended for confirmation resigned from the commission. And he was representing the western slope, because so many of them have to be from the other side, the western side of Colorado. After that, after we recorded the podcast, the other 2, one of which was not recommended for confirmation and one of which was, were brought up to the full Senate for a hearing. And apparently that was a pretty eventful conversation, a Senate hearing. A lot of groups were opposed to the one in general who was not recommended from the Senate subcommittee. There was a lot of discussion amongst the senators about, there are apparently thousands of applicants to the Parks and Wildlife Commission. Certainly there are better people, I'm using their words, not mine, better people who are suited for these positions. How come we're not hearing about all of them? Full disclosure, I am one of the people who have applied for a position. I'll also tell you that I have a lot of support, and I have a lot of letters of recommendation from pretty, I don't want to say influential, from people who are known in the recreation world. But I also will tell you, I've heard nothing from anybody, which may or may not mean anything. I don't know whether anybody's looking at my application or not looking at it. Regardless, just full disclosure, I have put in an application before all this controversy started for the Parks and Wildlife Commission. So in any case, lots of discussion, lots of back and forth, a lot of groups not happy with these nominees, a lot of groups not happy with the makeup of the Parks and Wildlife Commission, of which I am one of them. I don't think they represent the recreation community very well. It's not a personal thing about anybody there. They're probably just wonderful people. I don't think the makeup of the commission is as it should be, representing wildlife and the public at large in agriculture, and especially recreation. In any case, after all was said and done, after a lot of hearings, the Senate did confirm both of the nominees, the one who was approved or recommended from the Senate subcommittee and the one who was not, which I was very surprised at. I did not think that would happen. I thought that they would just follow the recommendation of that committee, the subcommittee. They did not. They confirmed both of them, which means they're in. Now they're in until their term is over. So even if in the meantime we know we're going to get a new governor the next election because the current governor is term limited. Even if it changes parties or whatever, they serve their term unless they resign or something like that. However, when their term is up, the governor can say, I don't want you back in here, and nominate his own people. Who knows what's going to happen with that? So the next opening that concerns recreation, I believe will be sometime this summer. I don't know what's going to happen. Anyway, that's what happened with the Parks and Wildlife Commission. I don't think we're done hearing about this. A lot of people are unhappy with the wolf introduction that was forced upon CPW by the voters. I think that was a dumb idea. I think some of these decisions that we allow voters to make probably should not be made by voters, should be made by experts in the field who actually know what the consequences are of their actions. Nonetheless, and that doesn't mean I'm not pro hunting and fishing. There's a time and place for that. Hunting and fishing serves a purpose. It controls population. It provides food for people, does a lot of things. And now there's a thing in the works to eliminate trophy hunting for mountain lions, which I think is already not allowed. But for some reason, now we have a ballot measure for that. It's like, let's pass a law to prevent. There was an old joke about a guy who was carrying a sign that said, ban chicken lips. And somebody stops and says, well, chickens don't have lips. And he goes, see, I was successful. Trying to prevent something that already does it. Anyway, so that's the update on the CPW Commission. I'm sure we're not done hearing the last of this. I don't know what's going to happen. If anybody knows, can get an ear on somebody at the governor's office, say, look at Bob's application, I would appreciate it. But there are groups that are working on this. I am kind of like, you know me, Kevin, I'm not a political animal. I mean, I understand politics, but I don't get involved in it. You and I have talked before that I never publicly endorse candidates, even though I've been asked to. I just don't. I never put up a candidate's yard sign in my house. I never put up a bumper sticker for any particular candidate. I will support, and we've talked about it, Kevin, supporting ballot measures that support parks and recreation and trails and stuff, various ballot measures. We've done that. And I will put up a yard sign for that if it's something I believe in, but I never do candidates, which I think doesn't make some candidates who I personally know unhappy, but it's not a personal thing, and I may vote for them anyway, but I just don't do that. So that may not be working in my favor, but I'm hoping some people find that a refreshing change in things, that I'm not going to politically worm my way into something. Either I'm qualified for a position or I'm not, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. So, Kevin, that probably sounds all really mundane, and people probably
no, it's fascinating.
it's weird.
It's fascinating to people like us.
It's I've been on a number of commissions, and I should say commissions, boards, advisory boards with the county and the city, and stuff like that, and never did I have to worry about some political appointment. It's always been people knew me, knew what I stood for, knew my, and this is somebody, remember, who did not spend their career in this field. I spent my career in public safety, but I took the time to learn things and understand them and provide hopefully valuable and useful input. And that's what it took for me to get appointed and develop these leadership positions I have. And I'm just not used to this kind of stuff. And I'm not, and some people said I'm naive about the political process. I'm not naive about it. I get how it works. I understand the politics involved in this. I'm just not in tune with that atmosphere, I guess. I don't know, however you want to call it. So, leading on from that, Kevin, you, because I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing about it. Kevin, leading on from that, one of the things you and I have talked about many, many times over the years is the proper equipment for going out hiking. We've railed on people who go into snowstorms where we've seen people in tennis shoes and jeans and not wearing the right gear. This past weekend, there was a crap load of snow in Colorado Springs, in all of Colorado. I think, and I'm not there, but I can look at my cameras at my house, and I think I had about 3 feet of snow in my backyard. Probably the biggest snowstorm to hit Colorado Springs that I can recall since around '97 when we had that huge blizzard, which dumped even more.
Every year, and I was living in Las Vegas when the '97 storm happened, so I missed that. But at least in my adult life, it seems like every winter there's always that, oh, there's this huge storm that's going to come. It's going to be 80 inches of snow. Like, it's just going to be crazy.
Well, that's
So when
if
they
you
were,
list, that's if you read out there Colorado, which everything is going to be the next disaster. Sorry.
exactly, yeah.
They're always predicting they'll start a headline with 6 feet of snow coming to Alaska. How about tell us what's happening in
Yeah.
Colorado, you dummies? Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, it's all good. And I feel like every time the storm actually comes, it's either an inch or two, or it might be 6 inches. But this was a dumping. This is the biggest amount of snow I've ever seen in my adult life, at least. And it came in two waves, and the second wave was larger than the first wave.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I'm watching on my cameras, and I'm looking at it going, oh, that looks so bad. And then I wake up the next morning and go, holy cow. And then that next wave comes through, and I go, I'm missing some pretty good snowshoeing. I shouldn't say I'm missing. I'm not having the opportunity to do some snowshoeing, which in that much powder would have been really fun. Whether I missed it, quote unquote, missed it or not, it's a topic for a different day. However, if I was there, I would have been like, oh, I'm strapping on the snowshoes if you can get out of the house. I'm strapping on the snowshoes. We're throwing the Jeep in four-wheel drive. We're going to go snowshoeing someplace. And now that I look at my camera, it's, we've talked about how fast the snow melts there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It is amazing how fast that 3 feet of snow has melted in my backyard. It was literally, 2 days ago, Kevin? 3 days ago that snow hit?
Yeah, and
it's Saturday, Friday, Saturday, something like that?
It was Thursday and Friday, I think.
Thursday. It's almost all gone.
And a day or two after the storm, it was still pretty cold outside, and it still melted.
That's that thin atmosphere we have and those UV rays that just kind of just melt the crap out of everything. So anyway, big snowstorm. So one of the things that reminded me is, and I think you and I have talked about this before, is that you need to have the right equipment, and that includes in your car. There are laws in Colorado about having chains or some type of traction devices or four-wheel drive if you're traveling like on I-70 for months out of the year. That applies to personal vehicles too. It was initially just for semi-trucks because semis would try to get over those mountains without chains. They would get stuck in the snow. They would jackknife. They would block the highway and bottle up traffic, put people at risk because they can't get through. There's this raging snowstorm. They have signs on the signboards lit for 100 miles in each direction before you even get there.
Oh, yeah.
Change required and stuff like that. And still, State Patrol still said they had a lot of vehicles that did not have chains on them, and they were writing tickets left and right. My personal opinion, impound the semis, impound the products that are on them, make the truck driver really suffer because he's going to lose his job if they're so stupid they can't pay attention to those signs, and they put people at risk and close the interstate because they refuse to put chains on their thing. It's not like you don't know it coming in. There's signs, I think, at the Kansas border telling you that at 150 miles, you better have chains from September. I went to from September to May, I think it is. I mean, it's a long period. You have to have them. And if they stop you at a weigh station during that time frame and they ask the semi, show us your tire chains. If you don't even have them on your, available to put on, you get a ticket right at the weigh station. And you get another ticket if you break down on the highway without them. And you get another ticket if you actually impede traffic. And they're still going out there without them. I'm running out of sympathy for that kind of stuff. And it applies to cars. So be careful out there, people. So anyway, as part of this conversation, you and I have talked about, one of the things I like to talk about a lot is footwear. Kevin, you know me, I am the Imelda Marcos of of hiking boots. I have a collection of hiking boots. And,
Yeah.
I go through them a lot. A pair that I have now, right now, in March, will probably not make it to the end of the year because of how many miles I hike. And the boot manufacturers tell you might get 300 or 400 miles out of them. Well, if I'm doing 800 a year, do the math. But they're not going to last. And then I've also been dealing with a couple of foot issues with came up last spring and have lasted me all year. And one of the issues I have is that my ankle, because of some tendonitis I have, my ankle on my right foot is not very stable. It takes very little for it to just twist. And every time it twists, it hurts. And then I walk funny, and then my gait gets thrown off, and that hurts worse. And I've had inserts that do work and different kind of braces. All that stuff works, but it's uncomfortable. So REI is having a sale, and this is not a promo for REI. Having a sale, 20% off stuff in their REI outlet, 20% off stuff in their store, regular stuff. So I was looking through there a week or so ago, and I saw a pair of Vask boots and I like Vask. They had a really good rating, but what I liked about them was they came up very high up on the ankle. And the reviews I read they were waterproof, they had good support, and their ankle support was really good. So I ordered a pair of those. They came in last week, and I will tell you that they are actually working out super well. I do not even have to wear my brace on my foot to stabilize my ankle when I'm wearing these boots. That they actually work out really, really well. I mean, I'm really happy with how they are supporting my ankle to the point that I've actually ordered another pair. One pair I'll leave here in Phoenix, I believe, what I'm going to do. The other pair I'll take home with me to Colorado when I leave here. But they worked out so well that I actually ordered another pair. They're on sale. And if anybody's interested, again, I'm not being paid by REI. I'm not being paid by Vask. But if you're interested in these, REI has them right now. And I will tell you in just a second what the model is. Let's see, purchase history. They are the Vask Torrey, Torre, ATGTX hiking boots. I know one pair in dark olive, another pair in a kind of a gray, so I can tell the difference. I don't get them mixed up or anything. Anyway, they're a $220 pair of boots. I think right now in the outlet they're on sale for $165, and then you have another 20% off.
Oh.
On top of them, gets them down to about $130 or so. Then I had like a $5.
Awesome.
I had like a $5 reward from using the REI credit card for stuff. So I was actually able to pile on there and get these almost $90 off these $220 pair of boots. I will tell you they're nice boots, but the ankle support has gotten me from not having to wear my brace with these boots. Now I have another pair of boots from Columbia. They're really great boots because they're very lightweight. They're great to wear in the desert. I do have to wear my ankle brace with that, which works fine. I'm kind of alternating between them, but these boots really have worked out well and have needed a minimum of breaking in. So, footwear, we're hikers. So everything we do, hikers and campers and backpackers, everything we do is on our feet. So you got to have the right footwear for that. And Kevin, we've talked about this before. You find a pair of boots you like, and you just buy them every time you can get your hands on, especially if they're on sale. I know you have pairs that you like, and I have stuff I like.
Yeah, but I think for this upcoming summer, I'm gonna get a different pair. Just I know if it's not broken, don't fix it. But I'm just curious to know if there's a better pair out there.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with trying them. I mean, I wore a pair of oboes for a long time. I would just keep buying them. I wore them for years. But then as my foot spread out a little bit, those oboes that were very snug became too tight, and I just couldn't wear them anymore. And I had a hard time finding the wide size. So all of a sudden they were not fitting. And I knew that, like Solomon's, for example, Solomon's have this nice way of wrapping around your foot and really securing your foot, which kind of simulated what some of the stuff did with my ankle brace. But I need to buy those boots in a wide, which sometimes can be hard to do. So, you just have to adjust. So I like Solomon's. They worked out fine for me. I had this pair before, so I bought them in a wider size. They fit me. It is and then, of course, manufacturers discontinue models too. So you always have to, you always have to adjust. Again, I'm not being paid by REI, and I will say if you can find the boots you like locally, by all means, buy local. But I will say the other nice thing dealing with REI is you can return boots that have been worn outside for up to a year if they just don't work out for you. Now, usually you figure it out way sooner than that they're not going to, I think after, a half a dozen wearings, if those boots are going to fit you right or not, if they're going to be comfortable. But with REI, you can return boots that you wear outside. With many stores, once you've worn them outside, you cannot return them. Well, what's the point? I mean, walking around my house on a carpeted floor up and down steps is not the same thing as being outside on a rocky surface, on a sandy surface, or anything like that. So it's not quite the same thing. So that leads me to one thing. So we're kind of morphing into a couple of things, being prepared, buying the right boots. I will tell you that I have a podcast set to come up in the next couple of weeks with my good friend Alicia Philly, who is the healthy hiker, a physical therapist. And we are going to talk about taking care of your feet. So watch for that to come up in the next couple of weeks. And we'll be done. Always a good time talking with Alicia. She's great. She's a hiking maniac like you and I and everybody who listens to this podcast are. So we'll be talking to her, get the physical therapist point of view on proper foot care and wearing the right boots and how to take care of your feet and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to it. So that's coming up soon. Kevin, what's your thoughts on all this? You're young, you don't have foot problems yet, and I'm getting old. My stuff's wearing out. I feel like I've done getting new tires. I'm getting retreads, and they keep peeling off or something. I don't know. It's just.
Well, I feel like for the past 7 or 8 years, I've stuck with the same shoes, like the same brand and model of shoe. They've always worked great. I feel like the quality has gone downhill. So I won't name names, but which is a part of my motivation to go and look for another brand and to see if there's another brand that works better, or if maybe I could, or if I'm willing to spend just a little bit more on better quality. But yeah, I think you are on point, and like you, I do need the ankle support because I had a pair of Solomon Trail Runners. And a few of my friends they are said that trail runners are the best shoes to wear on hikes. So I wore them up Mount Elbert. That was a mistake because there's no ankle support. So I kept flipping my foot, and it was miserable. And plus, they're really, really flexible. So I could feel every edge and every point of every boulder that I climbed up on. To each their own, but I really realized, like, okay, I've got to get back to a boot with a very firm, solid sole that's stiff, and with a little bit of ankle support, just so I don't twist my ankles or feel every single rock or pebble on my sole.
Yeah, I've had people who have or read articles, I should say, especially like Outside Magazine, which I'm beginning to have a diminishing opinion of, but you should only wear sandals, or you should only wear running shoes. You know what? I'll wear whatever the hell I want to wear that fits me and that works for me. Like
exactly.
You said, to each his own. I know people who like wearing trail runners. Great, if that works for you. It doesn't work for me. We've already talked about this. I had this peroneal tendonitis, and it weakened the ankle, and it needs support. So trail runners ain't gonna cut it. I need the ankle support. Some people like wearing these sandal kind of things. I think out here in the desert, we got scorpions, rattlesnakes, and cactus.
Oh no!
What the heck are you thinking? But hey, you know what? If it works for them, who am I to say? So, by the way, speaking of rattlesnakes, I've seen 2 of them in the last couple of weeks out here. Big old Western diamondback rattlesnakes. Yeah, one of them was fat, dumb, and happy. He was laying out. He's a good 3-footer too, laying out across the trail, and I was able to get 2 things before anybody yells at me. I tied Cole up about 100 feet down the trail, and 2, I was using my camera with a telephoto zoom lens. I was able to get some pretty tight pictures of this thing, but he was fat. I think he was just laying there going, that was a good lunch, whatever mouse he ate or whatever. And just think, I'm going to sit here and sun myself. So anyway, Kevin, talk about health. Let's talk about one thing. You had an incident occur over the weekend, and I know you want to talk about it. We have a few minutes. You want to just discuss that for a couple minutes?
Yeah, so this has not been my year for my health. As many of you know, I went to the ER because I felt like I was having heart problems, and then a few weeks ago I went to the ER because I just was dizzy. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't stand. My eyesight was blurry, and it turned out I was suffering from severe dehydration, and I think that was solely from the stomach bug that I've had for a while. So it's been hard to keep things down. Well, this past Sunday, I had a very, very scary experience where I was at a restaurant with some of my best friends, and I sat down, and next thing I know, I'm waking up in an ambulance. And later I found out that I had a seizure, and my friends actually had to hold me down and pull me off the chair to put me on the ground to keep me safe and keep everyone else around me safe. The way it was described is it sounded like I was possessed. So it's like the Exorcist. Sorry, that was a terrible joke.
Do not give up your day job.
Yeah. So I have an appointment with the neurologist next month, and hopefully we can find out if I have a condition or if it's just a one-time thing. Being dehydrated for a period of time can lead to a seizure, along with lack of sleep, which I've been dealing with, and not having a proper diet or schedule of food, which are all things I've been struggling with since the layoff, since I just don't have a set schedule. And it's been hard to have a set schedule, and stress and anxiety about the job search. It put my stomach in knots. So take care of yourself. Even if you don't have a job, treat it like a full-time job anyway to search for one. And just like when you hike, make sure you're eating enough food, drinking enough water and Gatorade or other drinks with electrolytes. Have your salty snacks and food and sweets. Yeah, so that was a lesson learned. I am very, very sore right now, but I'm feeling 1,000 times better than I did on Sunday, because I was already feeling really, really weird leading up to it. So yeah, that's just your PSA of the day.
Well, Kevin, you look good. I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm glad you're okay. My gut feeling, as somebody who spent 40 years as an EMT, is that this is probably a one-off thing for you since you've never had one before or anything. So I'm thinking this may be a combination of things. So just for the listeners too, that if you encounter someone having a seizure, which if you've never seen one before, when you see one, they scare the hell out of you, which I'm sure it did to your friends. Just a couple of pointers. One, don't try to restrain them, but just try to keep them from hurting themselves. So them getting you off your chair onto the floor was a good thing. That kept you from flopping out of your chair and hitting your head or something like that. Clear stuff, instead of trying to restrain anybody, just clear stuff away from them. Don't try to shove anything in your mouth. There's the whole thing about they're going to swallow their tongue. That's not going to happen. A person having the seizure may turn blue. That's because when you're having the seizure, everything kind of stops. Once the seizure goes away, they should start breathing just fine. If they're not, then know what you're doing as far as CPR and rescue breathing. Of course, if they've never had this happen before, call 911 right away. It could also be an indication of something in the brain. It could be, nobody knows what's going on, especially if they've never had one before. It could be any number of things. So obviously getting 911, getting an ambulance there. Don't take them to the hospital yourself, because if they have a seizure in the car, what are you going to do? Let the ambulance come, let the paramedics take care of them, the fire department, EMS take care of them. But the best thing you can do is when somebody's having a seizure is just clear an area around them so they don't hurt themselves. Let the thing run its course. Typically, I don't know how long it lasts for you. You don't either. You were out cold. Typically, They don't last as long as people perceive them to, because, of course, when something happens, it seems like it's forever. And I know I'm talking from a career firefighter in EMS, so I've seen thousands of these. And I get it that not everybody has. But the key thing, like with anything else, just keep your wits about you. But don't try to I got to shove this rag in their mouth so they don't swallow the tongue. They're probably going to swallow the rag before they swallow the tongue. You're just going to make things worse. Leave them alone and just let the thing run its course. If they're breathing when it's done, that's all you can ask for. Get EMS there. Let the professionals take over. But Kevin, I'm glad you're doing better, and I hope we get this figured out for you pretty soon.
I sure do too. Thank you.
Okay. So Kevin, with that, we have just about a minute or so left here. Anything else you want to say? Anything cool coming up? I did mention Alicia's going to be on the podcast. We have some other interviews in the offing, so we're going to have a couple of really cool guests coming up. Anyway, anything you got before we have to go?
I do not. I think I'm good.
Don't eat the yellow snow.
Yeah.
Don't make snow angels naked.
Please don't.
Don't do that. It's a really, really bad idea. Anyway, Kevin, thanks a lot for being on the podcast, especially after having the ordeal you just had. I appreciate that you came on here. You had the option. Just so everybody knows, I told Kevin if he wanted to come on, he could. If he wanted to take the day off, he didn't. He could also do that. He said, no, I want to come on and talk about this. So here we are. And thanks for doing that, Kevin. Hope things go well for you. Stay in touch. And with that, I think we'll say thanks for listening to the Outdoors with Ike and Bob podcast.
We'll talk to you later.
All right, everybody. See ya.